Welcome back to the Diet Debunk here at Hippocrates Health Institute, where we debunk some of the common diets and just common diet trends here that we see all over the world. And I'm here, my name is Lindsay. We're joined by Dr. Brian Clement here, and we are here to talk about the Mediterranean diet today. And the Mediterranean diet has been acclaimed as to be one of the best diets by many people out there. Brian, what do you know about the Mediterranean diet so far?
Well, I know everything that there is to know about it because I've been reading about the Mediterranean diet now for decades. And as we start to review why it's become popular, it's just slightly better than the average Western diet. And because that slight difference where they reduce the amounts of meat, they reduce the amounts of dairy, they don't eliminate them, you get semi-good results. Semi-good results.
Well, that's great. Let's give a little snapshot to the people here who may not know much about the Mediterranean diet currently. And so some of the acclaimed benefits of the Mediterranean diet, they say that it'll help with having a healthier heart, it'll help prevent some kinds of cancers, and also help lower your cholesterol. Do those sound like generally applicable things to happen with this diet, Brian?
Well, again, if you're interested in marginal benefits, the answer is yes.
Okay.
You're going to have very slight differences because it's all about the amounts of garbage that you eat. So if you eat less garbage, less disease causing, you should have slightly less cholesterol, slightly less disease, and it's certainly not where I stand on this because the reality is it's been well researched, and they have never researched the legitimate diet, and that's the Hippocrates diet.
So you're saying there's a spectrum of garbage we can take in?
Oh my gosh. I mean, pretty much, other than the vegetables in the Mediterranean diet, every bit of it's a garbage.
Interesting.
100% garbage. I mean, I've never seen garbage like this. It stinks, it's rotten, it's tasteless, it looks like what I used to eat. It's called beige and brown food, and that's what we're dealing with. I know it's not, in the part of the world it's very lively there and colorful, but their food is not.
Ah, interesting. So for those of you who are not aware of the foods that are really a part of the Mediterranean diet, there are actually a fair bit of vegetables, of fruit, which we can say are important things to eat, and also whole grains. But the things that they incorporate that maybe aren't so great are going to be the fish, the dairy, the eggs, and also they allow for some sugar and some alcohol.
Oh.
So we're gonna go look at a basic meal in terms of what someone may eat if they're on the Mediterranean diet. So starting with breakfast, a cup and a half of yogurt.
Oh, we started with yogurt, and I'm sure it's Greek yogurt.
Oh yes, Greek,
Oh, of course.
the high-fat variety.
That's the latest fad, the Greek yogurt. Everyone finally figured out yogurt is bad, and they put a little clip into there. Greek yogurt. Yogurt causes cancer. Don't tell me it's going to give you good bacteria. It's bad. It only gives you 1 or 2 strains of bacteria. When it gets into the human gastrointestinal tract, it pretty much acts as a domino and completely throws out of balance the bacteria count that makes your immune system work. So they start with something that's going to kill them in the morning.
Yep.
Do they go to number 2 to death?
Well, so along with the yogurt, we have a few other items. So we also have an egg that they incorporate.
Eggs!
And also a whole cup of either pancake mix or some milk that they'll put in there as well. So pancakes, eggs,
This is the
and
beginning of
yogurt.
the day?
This is the beginning of the day.
Do you make it to 11 o'clock on this diet?
We're going to find out.
What do you do? So let me review what you just said to me. You said to me, they start with Greek yogurt. They then put an egg into it. They then put pancake mix. What is that? Pancake mix is healthy? People get fat with pancake mix.
Now they say it's going to be buckwheat.
Oh, well, that's the first good thing I've heard about this entire diet.
Okay.
But what do they put into that? Milk? That's the end of it. Forget it. Bad. Insanity.
All right, so let's move on to lunch. We're going to have a sandwich for lunch, actually, and in that sandwich, we're going to have some avocado. We are going to have some sliced turkey.
Oh.
3 ounces of the sliced turkey, some artichoke hearts. Okay, and as much red pepper as you want. Now that's just the sandwich part, okay? So then also you're gonna have a cup of baby carrots and a cup of grapes along with it. So you have basically a turkey sandwich and some vegetables on there, carrots and grapes. What do you say?
Well, I could see why somebody who's in New York eating sausages would say this is a much healthier choice, because you did taste three things that were good. You said avocado was in there, red pepper was in there, and olives, but I'm sure they're high in salt. The bad part is, quite simply, that you're putting it on bread, and bread is made out of almost 100% of the time glutinous grain, and then you're telling me they put turkey in. We're going to review this. I've written books, and I'm an authoritative voice on each and every one of these subjects. So I've written a book on poultry, I've written a book on fish, and I've written a book on dairy. So we're going to get deeply into this in a minute, because any of these so-called authorities we invite here to Hippocrates Institute. And I will debate you anywhere in the world. I'll debate you on these subjects.
Okay, that's good. So the snack here, we're going on to snack, is going to be some hummus, which is just going to be chickpeas, garlic, some lemon juice, and some seasonings. So, I mean, how does Hippocrates do hummus?
Well, you can make hummus without it being cooked, so you denature the vitamins, the proteins, etc. Hummus is made of two incredibly nutritious foods. Sesame seed, which is loaded with a complete protein. Equally important is it's enormously high in calcium. Second, you have chickpeas, which is 25% protein. Now, if you eat them raw, we sprout the chickpea, we grind it up, we make raw hummus, we get the 25% protein. If you cook it, it's certainly much better than turkey or eggs or dairy or God knows what else. Now they'll probably add fish into this picture. But the truth of the matter is, hummus is not a bad food at all. As a matter of fact, the Middle Easterners in Syria, Lebanon, etc., they came up with that food years ago. When I was over there lecturing, I asked, why did this become popular? They said, we could sustain complete life on this. Why? High protein food, high mineralization. First thing we hit today that is okay.
Well, that makes me feel better because I love hummus.
Well,
so
she's the hummus eater. I knew it.
So to finish off the day, the Mediterranean diet, they say that we will end with a whole sea bass.
What?
And that's going to be...
It's outrageous.
It's going to be 1.5 pounds of sea bass, the whole bass. So
what? They're eating 1.5 pounds of a sea bass.
Yep, that's what it said.
Well, sea bass is loaded with heavy metals, not only mercury. I know all of you that are well educated say, oh, all fish have mercury. If you read my book, Killer Fish, mercury is the best chemical that's in there. They have dioxins in there. They have plastics in there. They have pharmaceutical drugs in there. The flesh of all animals, including fish, have saturated fat. So that you know this, the International Oleic Acid Institute, the leading authorities on essential fatty acids, omega-3, omega-6, omega-9, have never condoned fish or fish oil. If you look at the landmark study that was done in the country of Finland a quarter of a century ago, they looked at the population that ate fish and the population that did not, out of 280,000 people. Guess what? The people that ate fish and took fish oil had double the heart attacks, double the strokes, and I'll add in cancers, diabetes, etc. Fish is a fraud. It's F and F and F. Bad news!
Well, speaking of fish, let's dive a little bit more into the whole omega-3, the fish oil dilemma, because I feel like that's something that comes up a lot, and especially in health communities. People are talking about, you need the omega-3s, you need the omega-3s, and a lot of people are pushing fish oil, especially in these healthy communities. I know that, family members of mine had said, you need to take your fish oil, and I was never a fan because it tasted like fish, and I did not like that. But in terms of fish oil, the omega-3, what are some plant-based alternatives that people can turn to instead of taking that through a fish source? A lot of people don't know that they even exist.
Well, let's go back to where the fish get the omega oil from. See, we're creatures. A fish is a creature. Our body fat is saturated animal fat, period. Where fish get a little bit of omega oil from is eating algae, which is a plant. Where all of the best sources of omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9 come from are algae in the ocean or land-based foods. For instance, every green leafy plant has omega oils in it. A weed, an edible weed called purslane, which grows everywhere on the planet Earth, in the Swiss Alps and in the deserts in Israel and Arizona. It is loaded with omega oils. So we here at Hippocrates have plant-based that do not have the corrupting, disease-causing, cardiovascular-causing, and cancer-causing fish oils that are bad, bad, bad for you. I mean, the sad news is the alternative doctors out there today bought into the unfortunate data and information that was fabricated by the fish and fish oil industry that said you can't get DHA out of anything but an animal-based source, a fish source. This is not true. There are several companies, as a matter of fact, just today I received a box. I'm researching here with my team at Hippocrates the latest plant-based oil that comes out of algae that always has by far premium DHA, by far the best threes, etc. So don't buy into the fraud that you hear out on the street, even if your good-natured, holistic Joe the doctor told you this. They're just ill-informed, misinformed, and don't search deep enough.
Great. So also on the whole subject of fish, now the whole idea of parasites is something that we hear a lot of in common culture. People being very afraid of parasites, but I feel like people are afraid of them but don't really know what they are and really what they do or even how they get them. So we know now that a lot of parasites come through undercooked fish, sushi, ceviche, these products that are not going through the cooking process, and then those parasites are still living and they go into the human and they cause destructive damage. So in terms of parasites and fish, what's your background knowledge on that?
Well, I guess I'm a leading expert on that subject because after working with 270,000 people over the last half century, many of the problems that I've seen are parasitic and amoebic problems, which are not even addressed by most Western physicians. I had to really learn with the Eastern Indian physicians, the Africans and South American physicians, that in medical school they are actually educated on these subjects. It also has a lot to do with white aristocracy, the arrogance that we basically have. Often I'm in a wonderful place like San Diego, California, and my Anglo friends say, when you cross the border right here and you go down to Mexico, you got to watch out, they have parasites. And they say, back here a foot, we don't have parasites, but over here a foot, we don't. This is outrageous. I had an office in New York City. My partner was a medical doctor, had been an alternative doctor for decades, and we never found a New York City resident who had lived there any substantial period of time that didn't have parasites in their body.
Wow.
Never once. I had that office there for 4 years. When we're here at Hippocrates, we're testing for parasites. They're very sophisticated labs. Not your medical doctor who does a blood test that's worthless, but there's labs that literally we take fecal matter, send it to them, they come back with the parasite and which type of parasite, how severe it is, or an amoeba. You've got to understand, if you want to rob your immune system of health, have parasites and amoeba. If you want to rob your whole body of vitality and energy, remember, the parasite is eating. I mean, when I was living in Europe and directing centers there a long time ago, 40 years ago, it was stunning to me how many parasites that came out. And what was really interesting, Lindsay, is that we had more parasites with the wealthier people than we had with the average person there. Why? They traveled the globe. So they went to exotic places. They ate fish. And one correction, you said raw fish. Even cooked fish can contain these parasites.
Interesting.
So this is not a great thing. Salmon, by the way, which all of you have been lulled into believing is a really good health, that's not a really good health food. That's a junk food. Basically, almost all is grown in factory farms in places like China, about half to be approximate. We also know that in those factory farms, there are hundreds, if not thousands of fish where only a few fish should be. They become so anemic, so sick, that they literally are pouring gallons, liters of antibiotics in. And to top it all off, They come out of there sicker than they've ever been. They're eating through their gills other fecal matter of fish and recycling more parasites. When I would see the gross things coming out of people, we see it here on a weekly basis with our guests. I just was reported last week, one of the guests that are here in the Life Transformation Program, they said for 3 days they purged this out of their body. The entire bathroom toilet was filled up with it.
Oh my
and they
gosh.
said they first thought it was something they'd eaten, then they looked at it and some were wiggling.
Oh
So
my gosh.
this is not a unique problem. This is a very big problem. And in civilized places in the world, medical doctors acknowledge this. We have ways, of course, to purge it, but the only way to permanently eliminate it is stop eating fish. Stop taking fish oil. Stop eating chickens and turkeys. Stop eating pork. Stop eating steak. Stop eating wild game. Stop eating all of this nonsense we call dairy food, organic or not. This is a crazy, crazy thing. And this Mediterranean diet should be called the moderate diet for people who really don't want to be healthy, who really don't want to live a long time, and really don't have any common sense. That's the Mediterranean diet consumers at this point.
I mean, that makes sense to me. So we're going to move on now to talking a little bit about eggs. And now eggs is another one of those foods that people tend to say, well, they're healthy in moderation. A lot of more moderate health diets will incorporate eggs, saying that they're high in protein and that, you know, they're low in carbohydrates, so that they're sufficient in some way. But we know here at Hippocrates that eggs are actually increase your likeliness of getting certain kinds of cancers. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, the book I've written on this is Poison Poultry, and I also mention it in my book, Dairy Deception. And what we point out is a landmark study where they took 1,300,000 eggs from 68 countries on the planet Earth. Think of that, 68 countries, 1,300,000 eggs, of which half were called organic, ecological, biological. That means they were supposed to be. And of course, free range. The other buzzword for you yuppies that love that free range stuff.
They love it.
They love it. You know, BMW's free range. You don't do that. Don't shop at Whole Food Market. You're out. But here's the reality. They found out that 90% of those eggs either had Salmonella or E. coli, or both Salmonella or E. coli. This is coming out of the body, the fecal section of the chicken,
Right.
or the turkey or the quail. The other sad part of this whole story, Lindsay, is that these are baby birds. You think of them as eggs. These are baby birds. These are like taking a fetus out and basically cooking it and frying it. One egg, sadly, has 230 grams of cholesterol. You know how many grams of cholesterol you need to consume? None.
Zero.
Zero. Your healthy body produces cholesterol. If you're not eating sugar, not drinking booze, etc., it produces cholesterol. I've never had a cholesterol problem ever since I changed my whole lifestyle in my very, very early 20s. I'm sure you don't have a cholesterol problem.
Nope.
How long have you been a plant-based eater?
Let's see, since I was 15, so over 17 years now.
17 years, and she doesn't look like she's ready to die of starvation. And it's not a high-protein food. I just mentioned chickpeas are 25% protein. If you get 7% out of an egg and eating the poor thing, and by the way, getting the cholesterol it gives, and getting your Salmonella and E. coli, if you think that that's a good source of protein, I think we need to take you to the psychiatrist.
Agreed. And so the last thing that we're going to hit in this category is going to be on dairy. And now this is another part of the Mediterranean diet is they're okay with cheese. They're okay with some brie. They're okay with some goat cheese on their salads. And, you know, these more healthful cheeses, you know, they're probably not doing the cheeseburger. Okay, we can give them that. No cheeseburgers here. But, you know, they're incorporating cheese, also wine, some alcohol, and some sugar. So let's just talk about the dairy aspect of that really quick, and also as it relates to bone health.
Well, you know, I think the big clincher is in our grandparents' and great-great-grandparents' generation, the dairy industry globally took the minds of our youth. When I was a child, every single school in this country, in Europe, even in Russia, around the world received pints of milk for free. That was marketing. That was marketing.
That's some good marketing.
And they brainwashed the teachers who would say, if you don't take milk, and a lot of it always, your bones are going to break. Your bones are going to crumble. Now, when you're 5, 6, 8, 10 years old, you're not thinking about your bones, but your mom is, because she's worrying about osteoporosis. She's worrying about arthritis. And so mom is now encouraging you to take more milk. And I always liked it because I always got cake when I had milk. So,
well, there you go.
there you
Sugar and dairy.
Now, the sad news, quite simply, is that the real research, not the research funded by and created by the dairy industry, tells us if you want osteoporosis, drink milk and eat cheese and eat Greek yogurt and eat all of this nonsense that is completely the opposite of what you've been told. If you want more osteoporosis, if you want more arthritis, if you want more lung problems, COPD, if you want more asthma, and if you want more cancer, we know that dairy food creates cancer at the highest level of any food, it's not really a food for you, that we consume. Also remember, this is an unnatural thing that you're doing. You would never consider drinking milk directly from the cow. Why would you think it's perfectly normal to do that in the secret of your kitchen? You know, I know you don't want to be known as a pervert, but you are if you're drinking milk. That's perversion. You're going to get sick. You're going to die. This is insanity.
And do you know what, Brian, I think is so interesting about dairy is the fact that, you know, we talk about people as being lactose intolerant. That's a very common, everyone's like, oh, I'm lactose intolerant. I know that's why I drink this soy milk. But when you actually look at the studies, it shows that everyone is basically lactose intolerant. If you don't have some sort of reaction to milk, then you are in the smallest minority of people on the planet.
Oh, it's what's really sad about that, Lindsay, if you take the strongest people in the world, our ancestors, our heritage, the Africans, if you give some of them milk, they can literally die. That's not an exaggeration. The Latinos literally have a more ill effect than Anglos. We have so diluted our genetics that we have literally reacted less to something that's killing us more. And so this is completely correct what you just said. And meat has not been part of the Hippocrates diet for the last 65 years. When we take these things away, when we take away the moderate Mediterranean diet, I call it M&M, just like an M&M as far as I'm concerned, deadly, then people get well. Do you know how many people I've sat with? Thousands, that's not a joke, thousands of people who said, I'm on a good diet. I'm on the Mediterranean diet. Well, it's better than, but do you want better than or do you want the best? I mean, if I say to you, do you want something that's going to work 50% or something that's going to work 100%? Any intelligent person's going to say, I want 100%.
100%.
Why would you do this with this so-called diet? I know it's hard to do the right thing, but when you do the right thing, you get the right results.
Exactly. And then just the last thing on dairy is that the inflammatory effects that it creates within the body, I think, are so substantial that people really will feel the difference almost immediately when they start cutting dairy out of their diet because of how reactionary our body is to these pathogens that are coming in through this milk. And so in terms of people coming off dairy, what would you say that the time is like until they're starting to feel better in their own bodies?
It usually happens within 24 to 72 hours.
Right.
People are telling me mucus is coming out of their nose, they're having diarrhea. And what you're talking about scientifically is IgA, IGF that's directly linked to all forms of cancer. Overwhelming amounts of studies have been done globally on breast cancer and prostate cancer, but we also know that it contributes to liver cancer, pancreatic cancer, brain cancer, etc. So Dairy Deception is the book that you can read more about this subject. And I write these books for the lay public, but for those of you that are scientifically endowed, we always reference everything with science. Now, a lot of you would like to say Lindsay and Brian are not on the same path that we are. We are. We're on the path of making you healthy, making your children healthy, to make humanity healthy, so that we can no longer be manipulated by the powers that be, the meat industry, the dairy industry, the death and dying industries that control the economies of the entire human population and Earth. We don't want to do that. We are on the same page as you. The difference is you've got to raise yourself up. We're here to take your hand and raise you up, as we've done here with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people over the decades. You just have to be ready to open your minds, open your hearts, and read these things. You're letting yourself, as I did at one point, allow the intellect to say, there's not enough information. I will never stop giving you information as to how bad this Mediterranean diet is. I will never stop. You could have me for 20 hours, 50 hours, 70 hours, or for the next 3 years. And I'm going to always tell you why this is bad for you. Because wrong is wrong. It's never right. We can't correct wrong. We can only do moderate, and that's the story.
That's great. Well, Brian, thank you so much. I think this has been another great episode of Diet Debunk, and we're going to be talking about more things coming up and further episodes. And so we're excited to have you. We're going to be on HHI TV. We're going to be here on Facebook and on YouTube. And also these books are available at our Hippocrates store. If you'd like to pick one up, they're here for you. They're full of references, they're full of the science, and they're full of the facts that are going to help you change your life today, tomorrow, and moving forward. So happy to have you. We can't wait to see you on the next episode.
Diet Debunk!